And welcome to council meeting Monday, September 9th, 2024. Call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. I'll remind everybody to turn off or switch their mobile device to vibrate only. Thank you. I have a motion here that council hereby adopts the agenda for Monday, September 9th, 2024. Regular meeting of council as circular amended. Any amendments, changes? None? Moved by Councilor Withers, second by Councilor Lake. All in favor? Thank you. Any disclosures of interest this evening? No. The Councilor Suki, he's not on, eh?
I don't believe so.
Okay. He was going to try to zoom in. Okay, thank you. No disclosure of interest. I do have a motion here to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council were held on Monday, July 22nd, 2022, 2024, circular amendment. Moved by Councilor Withers, second by Councilor Lake. Any questions, errors, or omissions of those minutes? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We have a delegation this evening to discuss some items in the municipality. Brandy Deslange will be down to come and give an overview of some of the concerns you might have. Want to just come on down, please?
Yeah. Take your time.
Good evening or good afternoon. And the floor is yours.
Your Worship, council members, and administration, I'm here today to discuss a pressing environmental issue within our community and request your support in addressing it through a practical and effective solution. Growing up in the 90s, it's safe to say that the rate of people smoking was significantly more than it is today. And yet, somehow, the amount of cigarette butts being littered today far exceeds that of the 90s. This had me perplexed for the longest time until I realized that you no longer see cigarette receptacles anywhere in town. Smokers used to have the option to discard their cigarettes anywhere they went. Where there was a garbage can, there was an ashtray or receptacle. The excessive amount of cigarette litter in our town is a growing problem. Despite our best efforts to promote a smoke-free environment and encourage healthier lifestyle choices, smoking remains a reality for many residents. The discarded cigarette butts unfortunately contribute significantly to our litter problem and pose serious environmental hazards. Just one cigarette butt contains enough toxins to kill a 10-pound animal. Now multiply that by the thousands that there are across our community. In light of these concerns, I would like to propose the installation of cigarette receptacles. These would serve to provide designated areas for cigarette disposal, thereby reducing the number of littered cigarettes that end up on our streets, parks, lakes, trail systems, and other public spaces. The cost for 35 receptacles, including waste liners, is approximately $3,500 and can be strategically placed in locations around town. The areas that have the most cigarette litter include the boat launch, the rodent area towards Duncan Creek Bridge, Carden Cove Beach, the lookout areas over Superior, Penn Lake, Del Earl, Pebbles Beach, areas along Hemlow, Stevens, Margaret Toomey, Dyers Field, and other complexes in town. Now, I understand that installing these receptacles may seem counterintuitive to our goal of reducing smoking rates. However, the reality is that smoking continues despite our best prevention efforts. When the Smoke-Free Ontario Act came into effect in 2017, I believe that people were leaning towards a positive change. But with no real way to enforce this act, habits have and always will remain. The truth is, there are only 2 tobacco enforcement officers in charge of the entire Northwestern Ontario district. It's literally impossible for them to be able to enforce these bylaws. So where does that leave us if the regulations cannot be enforced? Well, we can focus on the change we have control over, and we can work hard to protect the environment. The Smoke-Free Ontario Act does not restrict the placement of ashtrays and receptacles in a municipality. Therefore, by providing proper disposal options, we can mitigate the harmful effects of cigarette litter while maintaining our commitment to public health. We're privileged to live on this land, so we must do better. Our environment and ecosystems deserve better. The installation of these receptacles would not only improve the cleanliness and aesthetics of our community, but also demonstrate our commitment to environmental stewardship. I believe this measure will contribute significantly to our ongoing efforts to keep our town clean and safe for every person and every living thing. I respectfully request that the council consider this proposal and allocate resources for the installation of these receptacles. Your support in this matter would be greatly appreciated by many residents who are concerned about the environmental impact of cigarette litter. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to your positive response, and I'm happy to provide any additional information or support needed to move this proposal forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that overview of that, and your concerns for the municipality for sure are very, very well appreciated, and I think we've gone through this process quite a bit over the past, but give the opportunity for anybody to ask administration any concerns they might have in regards to your presentation. Councillor Balance.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Brandy. I just wanted to acknowledge that, Eco Superior hosts some great programming out of Thunder Bay that supports the region and stuff. It's specifically around the environment, all that kind of stuff. Have we, as the community, touched base with Eco Superior in the last little bit? When was the last kind of conversation we've had with them? And or kind of like their support within the community around these kind of initiatives and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's been some time. Obviously, we at one time there was a program. As you can see, we do have some receptacles. I'm thinking of at the recreation complex as an example. And if I recall correctly, a lot of that was centered around when the Smoke-Free Tobacco Act did come into full force, and the health unit was very involved in providing subsidies with respect to those items. So. I would say we haven't had contact with Eco Superior recently, but I think the timing of the presentation this evening is well versed with our budget process. We actually just started that internally this morning with the SLT. So if this is something that council would like administration to propose as part of the 2025 budget, then the timing is right as we move forward with looking at budget strategy over the next month.
Okay, Councillor.
And just the one thing I do remember from council was Eco Superior did come in, and remember they gave up butt out things to the individual people, but you put the cigarette in your own butt out pouch, and that didn't work great because it puts the onus on the person to carry around a butt they put out. I think receptacles make more sense because they're public. I did wonder as we go through that process, though, is there a way to sort of triage so it's not all or nothing, right? Are there some really high value spots that we can identify that maybe if we can't afford all of them, that we can say, like you said, the recreation complex during a practice, who the smokers are, they're right out in that same place.
Yeah, I think obviously, the obvious ones, for us to target initially would be our recreation facilities, right? They're the largest proponent of, people using facilities, vis-a-vis the golf course, the boat launch as an example, as we make these improvements, at the beach, right? So I think, if council, directs administration to look at this item as part of the budget, part of that process can be, we can identify locations strategically that will have the highest impact.
Certainly, I recommend through the conversation with Eco Superior, they were big on that. We reach out to them directly first, and then we can have that discussion when we start our budget deliberations. Obviously, this year there'll be no dollars that have been earmarked for that program, but Eco Superior might be having programs right now that are identifying these type of issues and these containers that could be put within strategic places within the municipality. You had another question?
Yeah, just to follow, and this is just because I work at the school, so I don't see a lot of smoking. I see a ton of vaping.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like as I walk around, I notice cigarette butts, but the vape cartridges too, I don't know if there's a way to make it clear you can also dispose of them in the same place, right? I think they're probably equally.
Yeah, I think, if we launch this campaign, with council's approval, through the budget process, obviously a part of that is going to be a public education campaign as well. I think that's going to, probably just as important as having the receptacles is educating people on using them and how they can use them.
Okay. So if you recall the discussion that Eco Superior brought to our attention when they were forming these programs after the legislation had passed in Ontario for a smoke-free Ontario, was that they were not only creating problems within drainage systems and our own sewage systems, and costing a lot of dollars that way too. So the impact it had on the big lakes, the blue lakes, and the municipalities' infrastructure was great. We all understand that, but the reality is how do you educate people to utilize these receptacle containers type things, right? So anyway, Councillor.
There's one other thing, and I would probably flag this for our student counselors. If we're going to do a promotion campaign, running it through the schools for student counselors would probably be a nice fit. They could prepare something for the classes.
Sure. Excellent.
So we'll direct administration to check with Eco Superior. We'll have this as a line item discussion as part of the capital process, at least for the budget process as it starts, because it won't happen until 25. I can assure you we'll have discussions around it, but we'll come up with some kind of solution hopefully between municipality and Eco Superior as well and see what the dollars that could be allocated for the education as well as containers.
I appreciate just the consideration. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandy.
Okay, up next, I have a council reports. I'm just going to give a quick highlight of the annual conference that we attended in Ottawa. Obviously, for the municipality, it was important for us to discuss the funding application for the ALC, the Active Living Center. Myself and CEO Skorczynski had the opportunity to meet with various ministers, as well as did a lot of lobbying within ministers throughout the conference itself, as well as the premier, talking about how do we get that. And at the very time we were meeting with Minister Lundstrom, the announcement was made that the application process was then open. So we're working on that as we'll get an update from Mr. Skorczynski in regards to the ALC process, and then that will lead us into the funding opportunities for the municipality. So our meetings were strictly around the ALC. Some bit of it was around the Port Authority and funding for those operations, as we've been working on that as well with our First Nations neighbors. And I know if Mr. Skorczynski had anything in regards to the municipality, then I'll touch over with some of the other conference stuffs with NOMA.
No, I think the only other thing is I host a CEO's meeting of all my Northwestern Ontario counterparts while we were down there. Believe it or not, that's the easiest place to get together because we're so spread out. And just talking about, and I think I've mentioned this to council before, items of common interest that are really starting to drive, the cost of municipal budgets that we don't receive any funding for. As an example, insurance. There needs to be some type of cap on insurance, yet we haven't seen that. The province has said they're going to look at joint and several liability. They have. So we've talked to, one of the presentations that we've had was from Intact around, group buying, and are there opportunities for us to look at alternative insurance models to bring our premiums down? So we had a good discussion around that, and we'll have a follow-up virtual meeting in the fall as we start our budget processes. But looking at solutions, to really, more so social issues that traditionally haven't fallen, under the responsibility of the municipalities that are driving costs up, and how do we work collectively and creatively to find those solutions? So, they're common things like, we haven't seen it so much in Marathon, but homelessness as an example, encampments. Those aren't built into municipal budgets, nor are there any provincial funding for those programs, right? So how do we deal with those? So, rather than look at it as one-offs, looking at it as a group to try and come up with solutions. So always good to get together with counterparts with similar, challenges and try and brainstorm solutions.
Absolutely. There was as always, there's many different other meetings throughout the actual AMO conference itself for 3 days. I had an opportunity to pop into a few of the concurrent sessions and learning lunches. But I think the highlight for me was actually Dr. Sarah Newberry was there also talking about our medical situation, not just in Marathon, but of course throughout Ontario as Associate Dean for the Nossum School of Medicine. Really highlighted, and there was a great panel discussion around what does our communities look like, whether we're living in Northwestern Ontario or Southeastern Ontario or rural Ontario, anywhere. The reality is we're all struggling for docs. So the Nossum School of Medicine obviously is increasing their enrollment. That will be beneficial to us in 4 or 5 years out. And yet we're still seeing shortages in docs all over the place. So there was a great panel discussion around that. And how do we get that? And Marathon's been a very, huge Cinderella story for the province of Ontario for the last 25, 30 years. And when Dr. Newberry and Dr. Rancha came with Dr. Fitch at the beginning in 1995, 96, she highlighted that, talked about how Marathon was the model, and we were one of the first family health teams that were created in Ontario. But the reality is, we're now at the end of their career, and they're looking at their time for retirement. So we're going to be the community now in the next couple of years. I'm sure they'll be looking for docs to replace our retiring docs, who unusually, which is rare in a community, spend their whole career in one community. So thankful for that. And I thank Dr. Newberry for that as well. So it was really good. And there was like other sessions that were great about the opportunities for our communities moving forward and the new changes. But the reality is, as Mr. Skorczynski has said, that the costs of everything is going up. And we got to be able to control those costs. But at the same time, AMO is doing the best it can in regards to how they can create programs, as we're part of some of the programs with AMO right now under the LAS programs to identify savings and aspects of fuel and insurance is one of the ones we're looking at. And there was a big discussion around that at the conference. And we're going to be following up at our board meeting at the end of this month around how do we look at that in regards to some kind of joint program if there's availability out there, but it's tough in that. NOMA also had the opportunity to meet with ministers, a little bit frustrating again for us because we don't have multi-minister meetings. So we're running around as we did last year at Roma with many meetings with ministers to come together. And of course, you don't have the whole board because that member's over here, this member's over there. So we struggled a bit with that. Some of our key aspects this year were tax reform and taxation in unincorporated areas. We're affected right here in our next door neighbors and here in Bay North is a community that's an unorganized community that does not pay municipal taxes. It pays a small amount of provincial taxes, nothing against the homeowners. We're saying to the provincial government, not only do you have to tax the municipalities, we can pay for the services. Those are the places we're looking for taxation as well. The bigger centers where people are building $1 million homes on lakes just outside of unorganized municipalities, using all the services of those communities is really impacting the services that are provided by the municipality. So that was a lengthy discussion around that. We had the opportunity to as well meet with both the opposition as well as the Liberal Party to discuss this and ask for them to assist us with working with the Ontario government to make sure that these things can be looked at. And then, of course, we presented our economic growth plan, and this plan is a development in regards to time to grow. This is something that NOMA is looking at and looking at the increase of number of Indigenous individuals employed in Northwestern Ontario. And the growth plan is based for the next 10 years. We know we can grow in Northwestern Ontario. We know we can encompass all aspects of the Northwest, but we need to have support from government. So we wrote a plan, we did a study, and we had an intern working with us, Katia, and it's something we present to the government about skilled laborers, and of course, and the quality of the labor market, and also immigration. You know, immigration is a big part of that growth, and we have to accept and increase our attraction more than anything of immigrants, because immigrants are coming to Canada. We know that, but they're not coming to the Northwest or rural Ontario. So it's not just Marathon and surrounding areas. It's the Northwest, the Northeast, the rural part of Southern Ontario. They're not going. They're going to the major hubs and slowly start to see a little bit of that, you know, sprinkle out. But it's a real tough one to go. So we need to attract that. And that was one of the big items as well. And then last, we had a few other things about Ontario Immigration Nominee Program. And this was a big part of the amount of individuals coming to our part of the world. And we asked for 4,000 to be recognized as newcomers in Northwestern and Northern Ontario, so that we can identify those and fill the jobs and the gaps in our jobs, which is trades. A lot of individuals are going to be retiring in the next, say, not even full decade, but that's a big shortage we see through NOMA. So NOMA is going to follow up at our meeting at the end of this month as well on that program that we talked with government, and then AMO will be highlighting that as well, and we'll go from there. So it was an overall good conference, and you know, the biggest part for us, honestly, I think Mr. Skoczynski, was the networking we had to talk about the ELC. We did get a lot of traction. That'll all come out when we present that model to the government through the application process. So hopefully between the provincial and federal governments, we can really see some progress over the next several months on the ELC. And we will get a highlight on that as well. Any questions? Good. Well, next we have Councillor Brown's providing verbal report on the Women's and Trades Program. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, we're super excited. Confederation College and North Shore campus is going to be hosting a Women in Trades program. The program is geared towards women looking to break into the trades industry, designed exclusively to help gain essential skills and hands-on experience. Best of all, the tuition and books are free, and they'll receive a $100 weekly allowance to kind of offset the transportation or any other basic living needs they might have in order to be successful with the program. So starting on September 16th, the comprehensive program includes some math upgrading, some safety training, their level 1 heavy duty equipment technician training, some welding, and some pre-employment preparation. After completion of the program, they'll embark on an 8-week job placement. That's a paid placement with some of our larger employers in the region. And yeah, we're super excited about that. So if anyone is interested, there are still a few seats left for the program. You can give us a call at the campus. Our phone number is 807-229-2464. And we're looking forward to starting the program September 16th, which is next Monday.
Thank you for that. Any questions, Councillor Brown? Councillor?
Just wondering, is it 18 and above? Are there any?
Yeah, it's 18 plus essentially.
Do you have to have a high school? Do you have to?
You don't necessarily have to have your high school diploma, but in order to have that apprenticeship piece be leveraged and tangible, they have to have their OSSD within a year of completing the program to be able to step foot into the level 1 and then continue on to the different levels.
It's great you guys are.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. And encourage anybody out there to get in touch with Councillor, well, Mr. Balance through new and the college and in a second his other role, but by all means, that's great, and great to see the college, really putting on all different type programs to enhance the abilities for our communities, right?
Yeah, we have record numbers this year for enrollment and stuff. So yeah, so if any post-secondary programs or workforce development training that we have coming out, just give us a call and we're
Good.
happy to meet with anyone.
Awesome, thank you very much. So student council reports, we're working, and I asked Council Lake, how is that going? Do we have
So I think traditionally we're
first of October?
first October. So we've selected one.
Okay.
We're in the process of trying to find a second.
Okay.
There's actually the applications
Wow.
here, so it's actually kind of nice.
Good,
So we'll definitely have them for the beginning of October.
good, looking forward to that. It's always, so it's I did some mentoring through the AMO process, and Mayor Landry and Shunya did as well. And, we both had a great success over the last year with working with our youth intern fellowships. And they're going on to be masters in political science, but the reality is they're still youth, and, they're really geared up and excited about politics, which is really strange, but it is what it is, which is good. So it was good. So I really enjoyed that program that I worked with. Mine was Thomas Walling, and Thomas was really energetic fella, and I invited him to come participate in all of our delegation meetings. And so he really got a good handle of what was going on through the conference this year. And so he's excited, and he's thinking about going into politics. Imagine that. So
That's great.
good for him.
Next generation.
Thanks. Okay, up next, we got a report on the Active Living Center. Mr. Skociński, please.
Thanks. It almost doesn't seem fair that we're using one page to characterize 10 years of work, but I guess, we could say that's how close we are to having a final report coming to council. So I just did want to provide an update with respect to where we are with the Active Living Center project. As the mayor indicated, and we know from our strategic plan, it's our #1 municipal priority for 2024. So in terms of the construction documents, architectural, mechanical, electrical, we're finalizing those construction documents. Mr. Paris has a standing bi-weekly meeting with all of our contractors and engineers. So we're right on schedule with respect to the construction documents. Geotechnical reporting, we've completed our phase 1 ESA on site, which hasn't identified any major concerns. There are some items we will need to remediate, but they're quite minor when you think of the traditional use of the site and the size of it. And we're just in the process of completing the phase 2, which I would expect will happen in the next 30 days. And we do need the phase 2 complete to apply for a record of site condition to rezone the property from heavy industrial to the use we term, likely to be recreational or institutional. Cost estimation, we're on schedule to have the Class B cost estimate by the end of October. Class A only comes when we actually go to tender. So Class B is the final document that we need to bring to council. We're working with respect to the landscape architecture. We are working with a partner that hopefully we'll be able to announce in the coming month about a major development for the outside of the Active Living Center, which is going to be extremely positive for Marathon and our surrounding communities. Building specialties, that's a major focus right now, looking at pool design, acoustics within the building, as well as hardware, looking at things like entry and access points. Are we going to be utilizing mobile technology? What are those hardware and software requirements for those types? The days of taking tickets or going to the cashier are realistically are not going to happen in the building. So going through those solutions right now, and then looking at just overall security of the building, that obviously is a big concern these days. So looking at those hardware and software solutions. On the funding application side, I think, realistically, we probably won't see funding applications at the federal and provincial levels line up like they are right now. So both the feds and the province have funding programs open for new builds. So we're right on schedule to submit to the Ontario Community Sport and Recreation Fund for the end of October. We had a meeting last week with our advisor to go through the project requirements. And I can say, you never know 100% if we're going to be successful. It is only a $200 million fund, but we're going to have a very, very high ranking application in terms of being construction ready for 2025. The federal program, the Green Inclusive Buildings Fund, is open with submissions need to be in by October the 16th. we're right on schedule to have our submissions into that fund as well. And that's a fund that's where we'd be eligible upwards of $25 million for the project. And I know the mayor's had a number of discussions with our MP recently around that program. So right on schedule with that. And then the final one we're looking to have in before the end of this month is the Green Municipal Fund, which is at the federal level, but it's a standalone organization. In our case, we're eligible for a $2 million grant as well as an $8 million low interest loan.
Do you need to be a member of this FCM?
FCM?
You do not.
You do not, okay.
So in our case, we'd be looking at the $2 million for any redevelopment work from a brownfield perspective. And then the low interest loan obviously would offset some of the construction costs. But I'll have a complete finance strategy for council in the coming month with respect to what the potential breakdown of funding sources, borrowing sources, et cetera, required for the build itself. In terms of the schedule, so we're right on time and budget. Going back to January, we briefed council on where we expect it to be. Council will have a report in the last meeting of October or potentially a special meeting in late October. And we'll have to make a final decision on the project with respect to, if we proceed, how we proceed, and, what does that final building envelope and design look like? Mr. Paris and I met yesterday with respect to the project, and it's not really a question of can we build it. It's a question of how do we build it and how do we afford it. We know our current facility is at the end of its useful life. Obviously, we had to close the pool. We're 3 years away from having to remove the arena ice making system. It's just not supported anymore, right? It's an old build. We also know, just anecdotally, in some of our calculations, for every year we would wait to build the project, you could tack 3 to 5% on the total. That's what the increasing construction costs are. So, the positive thing is, we're right on budget with respect to the 2.9 that council approved this year to get us to this point, and we're right on schedule to make a final decision. So, we'll have that in the next month, obviously in open session with council, and then it'll be council's decision as to how we proceed.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Councilor?
Yeah, I mean, you're right that this doesn't indicate the amount of work that's there, and looking forward to a presentation, I would be in favor of a special meeting. I just think this is the big decision, and I think it deserves its own. We don't have to open council and do all kinds of other stuff, but just really focus on this one decision. So I applaud the work, and I applaud the political work you two did behind the scenes that I'm sure was a big lift this last week. And like you said, that it's about if we can afford it or not. And certainly everybody here is in favor of it.
Well, I think more than anything, we need the governments, both federal and provincial, to be our partners, and that's the key. And I think we have some traction at both levels of government. It's just hopefully that the recognition of those dollars are realized not only for the town of Marathon, but our First Nations neighbors, as well as our neighboring communities within the 200-kilometer radius, because that is key. They all utilize that facility, and they're not there every day, but they utilize the facility on a weekly, daily basis, but just at various different times. We know that. And those programs are very well associated for their health and well-being as well. So we made that argument with government, and we made it very clear that this is not just a town and Marathon facility, it's a facility for all. So, Councillor Valens?
Not only that, just to add on to that, as a region as a whole, everyone's infrastructure is aging. It's not like there's one community who has a brand new ALSE or anything within the last 20 years, right? So everyone's going to be in this boat one day, sooner than later, right? So
Absolutely. I think the newest arena would be Shriver's. That was what,
81, 1981, right?
there's some 40 years
yeah,
ago.
everyone's infrastructure is going to.
So that's the newest on the North Shore, really. So
It's good to be at the front of the pack.
Yeah. We're there, as you heard from Mr. Skrzynski. We'll have all the documents that are relevant to the project going forward. We'll have that special meeting. We will have a special meeting. So we request that now, rather than tying it to a council, we'll do a special open to the public, and we can have a good discussion on it. But we'll continue to work behind the scenes, and we'll continue to work with our ministers as well. We have really good traction with the provincial and the federal government, just a matter of making that argument continued on. And hopefully we'll get that application process for the feds, as you said, is one of the key ones. It's a $500 million fund. So hopefully there's lots of opportunities there. And the provincial one's a bit smaller, but the reality is it's still a fund, and it's a new build fund, and we think we can get some opportunities there. And then having other opportunities within our corporate citizens as well as our neighboring communities as well. So we'll see what all that looks like at the end of the day. Hopefully it's all positive.
So,
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much for that report.
thank you for that.
Up next, we have a report on Northern Waterworks project renewal. Mr. Paris.
This isn't as glamorous as the new rink.
No, it isn't, but it's for the safety of the public residents.
It is.
Good evening or good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, the mayor and council. So trying to have a report for the Marathon Water and Wastewater Operations Service Agreement. Bit of background, the current service agreement is expiring this year in February of 2025. So the agreement stipulates that the parties can extend in the continued said original agreement. So discussions took place with Northern Waterworks, and after careful consideration of the price proposals, the review team, which is our internal team, concluded that Northern Waterworks be identified as preferred proponent, and the administration began negotiating on a 5-year extension service agreement. So administration is pleased to advise that a service agreement has been successfully negotiated with Northern Waterworks. The agreement will take effect January 1st, 2025. We sort of wanted to move up the agreement 1 month ahead. So on a budgeting process, it's always annual every year, with a 5-year term ending December 31st, 2029, with options again of a 5-year renewal thereafter. The agreement is fairly comprehensive, that it clearly identifies the expectations and responsibilities of both Northern Waterworks and the municipality, and ensures that the facilities will operate and be maintained to the highest standards while meeting the requirements of all applicable environmental laws. Northern Waterworks has operated the facilities for the last 11 years, and during that time, with the ministry inspections, ratings, and compliance, it has been excellent. The new agreement will also allow for extra staff increase from a current part-time to a full-time position, with the acquisitions of all wastewater facilities now including Evergreen and McCullough lift stations being managed by Northern Waterworks. The pricing proposal from Northern the financial implications, the pricing proposal for Northern Waterworks is $466,012 for the first year, will increase or decrease by the consumer price index each year thereafter. The fees for 2024 are currently $410,144.28. If you would have factored in a CPI, we'll say 2.5, which is very low for today's standard. The cost in 2025 would be $420,397.89. So you see there is an increase. That increases for additional staffing, which supports legislation reporting and inspection requirements for both water and wastewater requirements being set out in the new municipal consolidated linear infrastructure environmental legislation and the acquisition of the 2 lift stations. Other provisions in the agreement with Northern Waterworks included a no charge callouts. We would lower the capital fees and no charge for the drinking water quality systems audit services will assist, which will also that'll include both for the lift stations too. That'll be an addition that has to be done by them. With assistant keeping costs associated with the service manageable for the terms of the agreement. So the options to council and mayor is to enter the attached service agreement with Northern Waterworks Incorporated for the operation, maintenance, and management of municipal water and wastewater treatment facilities and associated utility infrastructure, or B, do not enter into a service agreement with Northern Waterworks and begin a tender procurement for a new provider. Recommendations, your administration recommends that option A be selected and the bylaw number 2081 be approved, authorizing the mayor and the clerk to enter into the attached service agreement with Northern Waterworks Incorporated for the operation, maintenance, and management of the municipality's water and wastewater treatment facilities and associated utility infrastructures.
Yeah, thanks for that report. I do have a motion here that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on water wastewater contract, and further that the appropriate bylaw be adopted and enter into a 5-year agreement with Northern Waterworks for the town of Marathon and wastewater operations. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Ballance. Questions? Councilor Lake.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, like, we get the water quality management reports every year, and they've been excellent. Whenever a problem's been identified, it's been dealt with. What we don't see is the day-to-day for admin. So my sense is you've worked with a couple different operators. Is it good from your end to work with Northern Waterworks? Have you felt like that's a good relationship for the?
Absolutely is. So Northern Waterworks currently does a sewage treatment plant.
Okay.
So on the wastewater side of things, absolutely. So adding the 2 lift stations, really, it's in their wheelhouse.
Okay.
So it's actually the right move to move ahead with. So basically, the town will look after distribution. So the minute it leaves the lift station, that's our responsibility, no different than water. So wastewater and water will now follow the same criteria that way.
So as you identify within the contract agreement, there's an increase obviously roughly of about $56,000. That's because of the 2 different lift stations that are being incorporated as part of this contract. Are you going to see reduction in your staffing needs within public works so you can focus on other duties?
So I'll do a sort of maybe a little overview. We look at other areas we factored in where we said in here where we've lowered the service fees. So currently right now, anything we do in a capital investment is additional to this. You guys will approve that every year in the budget. So currently right now, we pay on a project, for example, we do an average of about 400 to 500,000 a year in capital. We currently pay 15% on the first 10,000, 10,000 on the first, the remaining from 10 to 50,000, and then we pay 5% from 50,000 on. We negotiate with them to lower those costs, so we lower that to 9% and to 6.25. So that will see a savings. I'd say on average, we'll see savings about 30,000 there, just in capital investment. So now that knocks our dollars down quite a bit. We'll see a savings. The public works wages runs at about 28,000. We're not going to see savings on the budget because that's going to be allocated to different work that we're falling behind on. So it'll give us some time to do that. So at the end of the day, there's a pretty minor amount. In discussion with, with our team here and with Northern Waterworks, we would have seen a major increase in what the standard rate was based on the COVID days of that. I was basing this on the current rates of the agreement based on what it would have seen, but they were very vocal that we were going to see an increase anyway. So I think it's a win-win. It also looks at retaining staff for Northern Waterworks. They're concerned. They only have 2 operators. Vacation is a big issue for them right now and trying to get staff. So this is a plus for them to make sure that they do have the right amount of staff here. They're bringing in staff from out of town. It's costing them more money. So this is a sort of win-win for both.
Okay, so I don't mind the explanation clearly identifies the offset and the increase based on those arguments. So I think that's fair. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it was a great negotiation that we did and the benefits of the town.
So with that being said, with the mover and seconders permission, I'll call a question. All in favor? Great, thank you. Thank you for that report.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, up next, I have a motion here for council to approve the following check registries for July 2024. Accounts payable in the amount of $1,433,448.87 and payroll in the amount of $208,163.80. Moved by Councilor Mallon, second by Councilor Lake. Any questions of those check runs? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. I have a bylaw. Council hereby accepts the 23 financial statements as presented by Grant. Oh, sorry. This is just a motion.
The bylaw should be with respect to the
The
Northern.
northern, yeah, okay.
Do you have it, Worship?
The capital council authorizes the office administration transfer. Yeah, the bylaws there. Oh, actually, no, it's not. No, pay 20. No, I don't have a copy of that bylaw.
Or you don't have the motion, so?
Yeah, no, I don't have a bylaw. Okay. So the bylaw, I'll just read off the motion here and then we can rewrite, get the clerk to rewrite one. I got it here.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah. The bylaw number 281 being a bylaw to authorize a cooperation and an agreement between the Corporation Town of Marathon and Northern Western Waterworks for the operation of the Marathon wastewater treatment facilities be presented to council from January 1, 2025 to December 31st, 2029. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Valens. So we'll identify that Councilor Lake had moved and then we'll just rewrite the motion and bylaw and then we can, I'll sign it.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, up next, I do have a motion here. Council hereby accepts the financial statements presented by Grant Thornton that were presented earlier tonight and a meeting prior to the council meeting on September 9, 2024. Moved by Councilor Lake, seconded by Councilor Wheeler. Any questions on that? These were the audited financial statements that we went through. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And out of that came a resolution and a motion that council hereby authorize administration to transfer for 2023 operating deficit that was run in 2023 for the operating and capital reserve funds from sorry, for the amount of $280,029. Moved by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Lake. Any questions of that? And I just want to identify that there was a portion of that reserve transfer for the sale of a works garage on the mill site that didn't transfer in 2023 that we anticipated. So that was close to the amount that we had budgeted for that building to be sold. And it just didn't happen in 23. So we're going to be discussing those issues in the 2025 budget process with administration. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
And your worship, if I can just, for the public's information, we're not able to carry a deficit over year to year. Hence why we need to take the money from the working reserve to fund the deficit. We always have to start the new year, 2025, with a balanced budget. We could never look at a deficit situation. Hence why we need to balance it off at the end of 2024.
Right. So as we discussed, we'll be discussing how we move forward with future sales of properties, because you can't guarantee those properties will be sold in any given year. You hope that it would be, but things happen. And in this case, it just wasn't sold. So we had budgeted for that dollars and it didn't come through. Okay. Up next, I have a motion here that this is in regards to the Franco-Ontarian flag and the recognizing of the Franco-Ontarian Day. The legislature that April 26, 2010 was declared that September 25th of each year be recognized as a Franco-Ontarian Day throughout the province of Ontario. Whereas of September 25th, the anniversary of the first raising of the Franco-Ontarian flag, and it represents over 400 years of French presence in Ontario. And whereas there are more than 745,000 Francophones in Ontario and the largest Francophone community outside of Quebec, whereas the Francophone Ontarian Day has become an annual occasion to celebrate the Francophone community within municipalities throughout Ontario. Now therefore be resolved that I, Mayor Rick Dumas, and by virtue of the power of the vested in me as the mayor of the town of Marathon, do by here proclaim September 25th as Franco-Ontarian Day and join all Francophone community members within celebrating its exceptional contribution to Ontario's growth and prosperity. Moved by Councillor Valens, second by Councillor Wheeler. Any questions on that? I did send a memo that I will be, seems like every year I'll be in Toronto at the AMO board meeting, sorry. So one of my fellow councillors that will be there, Councillor Valens, said he can definitely attend. If anybody else can attend, and we always have staff that are out there present as well. So I sent the memo back saying that, so I'm sorry for that. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion here that council hereby supports the tax resolution received from the city of Quinte West pertaining to the Canada Community Building Fund. And further that, the copy of this motion be forwarded on to the individual and originating resolution. Everybody's had an opportunity to look at that. First, I'll put the mover and second on here. Councillor Lake, second Councillor Wheeler. Everybody's had an opportunity to look at the increase and they were asking for the Canada Community Building Fund. Doubling it up.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Yes, that's the new name of the gas station.
Yeah. So obviously that's the money that we can put into our account and we can stack that and carry that forward for future projects. So obviously anytime that we're willing to get more money from the government, that'd be awesome. So everybody's good with that?
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else from council? We have a closed meeting directly during the public meeting to discuss acquisition, disposition of lands and plans and instructions and for negotiations that coming up for the municipality. So with that being said, I need a mover and second to adjourn this meeting at the hour of 4:45. Councillor Lake, second by Councillor Wheeler. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Yes. Thanks, Frank. That's good.
No, thank you.
That's good. I've never seen anybody smoke anymore, just because I guess.
Well,
I sure don't. Is that one of the places already on the arena? Oh, first they go up and the flags are on my lawn.
it's everywhere.
That's where you want to identify.
And I mean, I'm willing to buy a receptacle if it can go in town.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I am more than willing to buy it.
Actually, that does make sense. People just go. Yeah.
Alan, how you doing, buddy?
Good, sir.
Right on.
You went to my doing Sunday? Yeah.
I heard that.
Coming to pull off.
Wow.
You didn't mind doing.
How much you make?
I made 85.
Okay, well, we want to skip it.
Oh, you
That's
guys
why.
on the scale?
We
Yeah,
want to skip it. Yeah. We got 75 each.
yeah. So you got 85.
Got 85 each. Oh, you did really well then.
That's what I said.
Oh, you did more than us. We did 75.
So we have forever have to balance the budget. It's just like,
Yes.
some of the council, they just have to.
It's a law.
Can we do a, what do you call, resolution saying it's bullshit? 'Cause it would be nice to be able to provide a deficit,
In
right? Like,
certain situations, I agree.
right, like,
The problem, I don't think that would ever get any traction.
because people would just want to come to the front.
So, we would run a responsible deficit, right?
Yeah, like a business.
Right.
I want to make this big investment over this period of time.
Right, and we're gonna pay it back.
Yep.
Right, which makes sense.
Yep.
Right, but you'll have communities that what'll happen is they'll run a deficit, they can come year over year, and then they get out. Right. Yeah. There's enough creativity within the legislation that, while we theoretically on paper cannot run a deficit.
Yeah.
Right?
We can shift money here.
Right.
Yeah, well, you see the big cities, the way that they do their budgets, right?
Well, and the other way to get around that, which traditionally small municipalities don't do because we don't have a growth factor, is you do a 5-year plan.
Because you know you're gonna be 8% bigger,
Right.
8% more revenue.
So you're not running a deficit, but you're gonna have more growth. It's really, I don't think I know I talked with the